All right, welcome to another episode of the LogiCast. My name is BlankaKong, joined by Gunnar Eos, How Wolf. This week's topic is going to be um, about an article from Quantic Foundry. I could say that, I promise. Gamers have become less interested in strategic thinking and planning. This is an article from a few weeks ago now. It's a little dated, I guess, May 21st, but it's an interesting topic, and so we decided to talk about it. This is basically a website company who have developed a gamer survey that kind of determines what gamers are interested in. And strategy is a pillar or a topic or a category rather that has seen a huge dip in interest. So you're seeing it on screen now. From 2016 in January to January of 2024, this is the dip from 50% down to 35%. That's a huge drop. Um, and so we're just going to discuss the article. We're going to go over it and just talk as to why, or discuss as to why this is happening and why these results are what they are. Because there's no other category in their survey that has a dip like this. So, what are your initial thoughts on this particular topic?
Oh man. This personally makes me sad because strategy RPGs are one of my favorite, like number one favorite genre of video games, specifically the Japanese strategy RPG games like um Final Fantasy Tactics, Fire Emblem, Front Mission, games of that ilk, and to see that it's not only taken a slight dip, but a massive dip. It's just like it when I first saw the chart and the graph, like it was surprising. It was honestly very shocking because I knew these games were probably not as popular as they used to be, but I didn't think their popularity fell that heavily and that far from and in a very short span of time too. But it also kind of, yeah, it kind of it all makes sense now why strategy RPGs has one, they've been coming out less. Two, the ones that have been coming out have just been not very challenging, been very easy to beat, or games that were strategy games in the past, their new iterations have transitioned into a more action oriented style of gameplay. Like those correlations now make sense with this chart. I see that now. But yeah, initial thoughts. It bummed me out because I love this style of game and kind of tells me this style of game isn't in vogue nowadays, to say the least.
Wolf?
Yeah, I could say the same.
Okay. Um, so we'll just start at the top here. The gamer motivation profile. This is a 5-minute survey that allows gamers to get a personalized report of their gaming motivations and see how they compare with other gamers. Over 1.7 million gamers worldwide have taken this survey. The 12 motivations that are measured in our model were identified via statistical analysis of how gaming motivations cluster together. So the 12 gaming motivations are action, social, mastery, achievement, immersion, creativity, destruction, competition, challenge, completion, fantasy, design, excitement, community, strategy, power, story, and discovery. We have taken this survey, and we all got different results. There's an entire episode of us talking about that. I got Gladiator. I think Gunner got Architect and Ninja, and Wolf
Yeah.
got Skirmisher and Gladiator. I think something like that, right? I don't remember, but you can check out that episode and
Yeah, it was something like
something
that.
like that. You can check out that episode because we also compare it to like our top 10 like most played games on PlayStation 5 because PS5 has a feature where you could like look at the games you've played the most by the hour, and so that's a whole episode, so you can check that out as well. Um, let's see. So in our analysis sample, 75% identifies male, 21 identifies female, 4% as non-binary. That's interesting. That 4% is consistent with that Capcom survey. So that's just funny to me. There's another episode where we went over a Capcom survey, and for gender, other was 4% as well. So that's just funny. The mean age is 24.5 with the standard deviation of 7.33. 12% identify as casual gamers, 68% as core gamers, and 20% as hardcore gamers. Geographically, majority are North American, which is most going to be United States and Canada, Western Europe, which is England and those the countries surrounding England, the UK,
Spain, France, Germany. Yeah.
In terms of gaming platform, 81% regularly play games on PC. That's huge, 81%, and then 55% on console, 34% on mobile. As a whole, the data collected via
Mobile market.
Yeah, the mobile market is that 34% is obviously smaller than the other two, but that's a huge number
Compared to how it was years ago.
10 years ago. That's a huge
Yeah.
jump, right?
Yeah.
I could proudly say I'm not a part of that market. As a whole, the data collected via the gamer motivation profile is consistently centered on the Western core PC console gamer market. Mobile gamers, especially casual mobile gamers, which is funny. It's like you're a mobile gamer or you're a casual mobile gamer. Like we've gotten to that point where there's more tribalism. It's just funny. Are underrepresented because they are less likely to identify as gamers and thus less likely to be interested in something labeled as the gamer motivation profile. These are people who work in corporate America, who work as doctors or whatever, and they play Candy Crush on their phones. They're like, I'm not a fucking gamer. I just play this silly game to pass the time. Yeah. So those guys don't, they're not represented in this survey here. And this is the chart with the dip here. What was the point? Yeah. 67% of gamers today care less about strategic thinking and planning when playing games than the average gamer back in June of 2015.
Man,
that's
fucking wild.
Crazy. And so there's a few caveats that I want to point out. So I think there are two main reasons as to why this is. Number one, I think the gaming population has grown to the point where it might have affected the newer gamers are probably less interested in strategy because they're younger and they're maybe exposed to different kinds of games or more narrative driven games, and so that kind of dilutes the metrics here a little bit because they're adding to the overall population of survey takers. I think that's number one. So it's not as bad as it seems, but it's still bad. And number two is I think it's kind of linked to number one, where I think newer gamers are they're interested in more narrative-driven games. I think just people are they're just lazier. Just to put it simply, they just want the game to kind of play itself in a weird way. And they just kind of want to watch the game. But still have the glory, and I use that term loosely, of saying, yeah, I played and finished that game. What do you guys think of that? Am I crazy for thinking that, or?
No. I think you're 100%. Yeah, you're 100% correct. Gaming has become way more popular and way more mainstream than when we were in our teens.
Yeah. Sure.
So the market is definitely bigger as a whole, and older games a lot of turn-taking RPGs, a lot of strategy RPGs, a lot of games like Age of Empire and Civilization. They are not the mainstream anymore. Your mainstream are fast-paced games like Warzone and Apex and action games.
And, those games.
Valorant, that's what that's what the current, and I say current Gen Z kind of gamers, that's what they're playing, and millennials, younger millennials to a certain degree. So yeah, to play a strategy game where to get through one map, depending on how good or bad you are, could take between 20 to 30 or 40 minutes. They don't got time for that anymore. they just don't. Or in their mind, they don't have time to play those type of games. Those games are boring to them. They're slow. They're uninteresting. They lose them. So, no, you're 100% correct. It's either fast paced and flashy and just like dopamine hits left and right, or they don't want anything to
And
do
it's
with
not
it.
just that too. There's another side to it. So there's definitely that where people want, just action or narrative. But there's also people who want creativity, right? There are people who want more relaxing games that they want to turn off their brain, not because they can't handle strategy, but because they want a more relaxing experience. I hear this all the time when I talk to people about games like Dark Souls, where I don't play games like Dark Souls because when I play games, I want to have fun. And getting my ass kicked and rained by the same boss for 6 hours isn't fun. I'd rather play Animal Crossing. I'd rather play Minecraft. I'd rather play insert relaxing game here. So there's also that too. So this isn't just bashing dumbasses, but this is also like a result of like people wanting different things from the gaming hobby as well. I wanted to point that out before we get too deep into the conversation and I forget to bring that up.
Yeah.
Wolf, do you have any like response to that, or should I move on?
No,
No? Okay.
I honestly can agree with that. There are some who just want to pass up time because they had a hard day. They get home, they just want to throw their stuff down, turn their brain off.
And I feel that personally because funny backstory. So like back when air quotes, I played Final Fantasy 14. Like I would spend a lot of my time, most of my time, mining. There was something fun about it. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I pine to go back to the mines, as certain people would say. But like I remember Wolf being so annoyed and like, dude, what do you mean you're mining right now? Like we should be raiding. And I'm just like, man, I just want to get these rocks. I'm trying to get the stone, man. And because it was just relaxing. It was just like, oh, I'm just getting stones and just getting diamonds and stuff and just selling stuff and crafting things. It was just relaxing. It was fun. So I get it. I'm not, but obviously most of my gaming time is spent hacking shit up and like, blowing shit up, and that's really what I like to do. But I like to, put on the farmer's hat every now and again and get out there and get some positive yields. So anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
How big exactly is a drop to the 33rd percentile? Well, it's equivalent to all men aged 20 and up in the U.S. losing 17 pounds a weight. I'll take that. It's equivalent to all adult men worldwide losing 1.34 inches in height. Could you imagine all of us just losing 1 inch?
Don't do that to me, man. I already don't got enough to work with. Don't take what I have.
It's the equivalent of everyone worldwide losing 6.75. We'll just round up.
Please, no. God, sorry.
7 points of IQ. That's significant. I don't know what my IQ is. I have no idea. I couldn't tell you. But I can tell you, I ain't like some genius. I'm not walking around with a 120. I'm pretty sure I don't got a 120. I don't know where I am. I don't even want to guess. But to lose 7 points of that, wouldn't want that. I'll lose I'll take the 17-pound loss though. I'll take that any day of the week. But the point is, like, this is the equivalent to like that dip that we saw in that first chart there. So that's just a way to kind of like familiarize how big of a loss that is. The magnitude of this decline in strategy is equivalent to all adult men in the U.S. Yeah, okay, I read that already. And this predates COVID, so that's another point. Some people might read this article or might hear this conversation and think, oh, well, this is a result of COVID, right? And that's a fair assessment, but again, this survey was before COVID, right? 2015 is when they started it.
2015.
And the dip started before COVID was even a thing in 2020. So the decline in strategy clearly predates COVID. It is noticeable from the earliest data collection periods, and the trend line suggests that it started before 2015 of June. The trend line also makes it clear that they were observing is a gradual but very persistent long-term downward trend in strategy. Whatever the cause, it's likely not a sudden single historical event. but part of a larger long-term cultural and psychological shift. I agree with that.
Yep, 100%.
The downward trend slowed down prior to COVID, right before January 2020, and regained traction during COVID era, and then has slowed down since COVID. Restrictions have been lifted, so there is a potential argument to be made that COVID exacerbated or prolonged its ongoing trend. So that's very interesting. And the decline is identical for both men and women. So anybody saying, "Oh, women are smarter than men," or "men are smarter than women," nope, we're both fucking dumb as shit. So accept it. We're equal on that when it comes to that. We're equally, we have dumbasses in both camps, and this is the trend for. It's actually it's a deeper dip for girls according to this, right? Look at that dip. Holy shit. That's 2018 to 2022. So this is what, Candy Crush, Clash of Clans, and Genshin Impact. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is a breakdown between U.S. and non-U.S. So
Yeah, so you can't dunk on
you can't
Americans.
say Americans are just stupid. Americans are stupid. However, we're all stupid. So, but yeah, for non-U.S., it's also like a bigger dip, which is interesting.
Damn, yeah.
It's crazy.
But why has strategy declined over time?
This is what I'm interested in.
There are many seemingly related findings in the terms of our media consumption habits. For example, over time, shorter YouTube videos have garnered a higher share of overall views, which is true. People's attention spans have dipped.
That attention span. Yeah.
The duration of shots in movies, this I didn't know, between each cut has decreased from 16 seconds in 1930 to 4 seconds in 2010.
That's why everything seems so jump cutty, because it practically is now.
That's crazy.
Everything's a jump cut.
The average time spent on a computer app window has decreased from 2.5 minutes in 2004 to 47 seconds in 2016.
Oh my
and it's even
God.
less now, because 2016 was 8 years ago. Wow.
Wow.
In this,
Strategy games never stood a chance.
they really didn't, man. In this light, the decline in strategy is likely not a. Ooh, look at this word.
Idiocentric.
Yep.
Yeah, idiocentric.
Idiocentric, sure. Phenomenon among digital gamers, but parallels the general reduction in attention spans observed by researchers in different fields. But because all over time comparisons are inherently correlational, it's different to pin down cause and effect. While we often blame social media for our decreased attention spans, I think that's that's fair.
I mean, there's
a lack of concrete causal evidence for this. Even with the lack of evidence, I feel like it's super obvious. Of course, it bears pointing out that the causal evidence, or the causal evidence, for this would be difficult to produce, since it's unethical to raise children in artificial labs. Also, that's okay. I'm not gonna go there. But we go with other experiments, though, right? All right, I'm not gonna go there. Also, the shot duration analysis in movies is a counterpoint to blaming social media entirely. This downward trend in media attention span can be traced as far back as the 1930s, although it is clearly possible that social media accelerated the undenying trend.
What the hell? Did social media spawn this article? I think social media is like the why attention span.
100%.
Yeah, come on now.
Gamers are now more easily cognitively overloaded when they play games and are more likely to avoid strategic complexity.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If it's too much thinking, not interested.
So I wonder if that's why, because I could tell you that, like, when I watch MMOs, when I watch people play MMOs, I do get like a little anxiety watching all those symbols. I'm like, ooh, my God, there's a lot going on here. So if I feel that way, but I wouldn't be afraid to jump in. Like, I would just be like, all right, fuck it, we're just gonna learn, right? A lot of people would probably just walk away and be like, you know what, this is not for me. Like, I just can't do it.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with the MMO thing is that, like, if you're seeing someone play, chances are you're seeing them play, like, high level content when they're at max level. A good MMO, and even though I don't play it anymore and I got burnt out on it, Final Fantasy 14 is a good example of MMO that paces your skills. So if you look at someone that's max level, you'll get that anxiety because you'll see them pressing buttons and they'll be moving their character, and you're like, I don't know what's going on. But if you look at that process from like level 1, you'll see, oh, okay, when at level 1 it just starts as a 3-hit combo. 1 2 3, 1 2 3. And then when you level up, you get a buff. And it's like, okay, so you hit this button and it gives you more damage. So now your 1 2 3 hits harder. And then like that process slowly
your
grows
rotation
over time.
slowly gets more complicated over time.
Yeah.
But you're given the time
Yeah.
to get better and to learn the rotation
Yes.
because you're learning it in steps. Like I know that just researching 14 when I was playing 14 because I was going to play Paladin, ended up becoming a miner full time. But I was researching and watching videos on like how to be a good Paladin and how Paladins in that game at least are like kind of like the leaders because they're responsible for like tanking everything, and so they should know the dungeons the best and blah blah blah. Which was like, oh, okay, this sounds like a lot of responsibility. I don't know if I want to do this. But yeah, I understand that, and it didn't intimidate me like the complexity, but I could see. But like again, I'm like, we're in this group, we're like kind of different. Like we're willing to like put ourselves in vulnerable positions as like a gamer, like play a new game that we've never played before and really like dive in. Whereas a more casual player will look at the same game and go, "Ooh, this looks crazy! Like this is way more complicated than Animal Crossing. I think I'm out." Right?
Yeah.
They wouldn't even try it.
So I have a perfect example, and it's from a game franchise that I admittedly I wasn't there at the beginning. I kind of came late, but I did go back in time. So Fire Emblem. So most people, like, if you play Nintendo consoles, you know Fire Emblem. It's Nintendo's titular strategy RPG game. If you play Marth's game, if you play that game, and then you play the latest Fire Emblem Engage, they are vastly different games. Fire Emblem Engage is barely a strategy game, because it is so easy to make yourself overpowered. That intimidation that you were talking about in terms of a strategy game doesn't exist anymore. Because you just walk up to an enemy and just fucking body him. Whereas in older Fire Emblem games, it was strategy from start to finish and not just moving your units. It's knowing what your units are. Knowing, oh, if I place a Pegasus Knight next to an archer, she's going to be obliterated. Oh, I need to stop my enemies at a choke point. Let me put a heavy knight here because he has max defense, but he's slow. So I got to make sure he doesn't stray too far from the team or he's going to be surrounded. And if a mage comes up to him, it's over for him. Now in Fire Emblem Engage, they took out weapon usages. Why?
Right.
Because people complained it was too hard. Oh,
Yeah.
I want to use the Killing Edge. For those who know, it's a weapon that has like the highest critical hit rate. Oh, but it only has 10 usages? 10 usages? I don't like that. Make it infinite. So, again, they did that. So now all the strategy of like, okay, I have limited weapons. When do I use these? Who do I use these on? I need to save it for this boss. Now's the time I use. It's all gone. Because they're all infinite now. So that's an example of a franchise that I started with Fire Emblem Awakening. That's kind of when Fire Emblem started to become more casual. And then I chose to go back to play Marth's game, Shadow Dragon, to play Roy's game, to play Ike's game. Because I knew these guys from Smash Brothers. And I was like, wow, okay, these are a lot more fun. And then we have Engage. So, like, that's a personal example of a strategy game going from this complex, deep gameplay loop into like the very casual, easy game that it is now. And one of the major things that separated Fire Emblem from other strategy games is if your guy dies, he stays dead.
He stays dead, yep.
Yeah. If you didn't want him to die, you should have never put him in a situation where he would have died. Now, in Engage, and it didn't start in Engage, but I'm using Engage because it's the latest one. Now they have casual, and they name it casual or classic.
That started
And
with
classic.
Awakening, right? That was the first game to do it.
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. Awakening started a lot of things.
Yeah,
it kinda-
it started that whole what's it called?
Casual mode.
New generation casual mode. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, now you don't even have to worry about losing your people. So if you have that cute mage, that she's your favorite character. Oh, I put her in a bad situation. She got fucking railed by 3 heavy knights. Oh, it's okay. She'll come back next map. And it's just like, but now I understand looking at these graphs and reading this article. That's why Fire Emblem, and in my opinion, has degraded to the point it is now, where it's hard for me. It's hard to have fun with Fire Emblem anymore. I see myself going back to play older Fire Emblem because this new stuff is just. I'm not even particularly I'm not a strategic mastermind. My strategy, for these guys that know, my strategy in Advance Wars was just to build up a bunch of medium tanks and send them in a straight line because you can't kill us all.
She can't take us all. That's
So I'm not
funny.
the best mind, but it's just like, you don't even need to do that anymore. And I haven't even played the remake of Advance Wars, but I heard it's way more forgiving than it was when it was on GBA. So it's just like, yeah, I see it now. Now I have the visual evidence in front of me to see why some of my favorite strategy games are either not strategy games anymore and action games, Front Mission being the prime example, or they're very easy. Fire Emblem being the titular example that I just explained. So that's a personal anecdote that correlates with this particular topic.
So for Fire Emblem, I only ever played Fire Emblem, the first one on GBA in North America, the Sacred Stones, which is the second one on GBA in America, North America, and Awakening. That's it. I've only ever, those are the 3 that I've played and finished. And I liked Awakening, but I couldn't. I know you guys got into the whole the whole breeding mechanic, pairing certain characters together to get certain movesets and all that, and that was cool. But I didn't dive into that because I was like, I don't know, that kind of strategy of character building, and at least in that context, didn't appeal to me. I liked the first Fire Emblems, which were the one with Lynn, fucking Hector, and I forget the other dude's name. It's Roy's father. I think his name is Eliwood, yeah.
Eliwood. Yeah.
I like those games because it was more. It was simple. It was you had your triangle, your rock paper scissors mechanic, where I forget it now. Axe, I think, beats.
Oh man.
Sword beats beats axe. Axe beats spear. Spear beats sword.
Spear beats sword.
So it was that,
and magic.
and then magic was
magic
just,
does equal damage.
Yeah, magic is just kind of the neutral faction or whatever. But I liked that. I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then the game introduced tile bonuses or whatever. So if you had a character in the forest, they got a defense boost. If they were on the hill, they got a defense boost as well or whatever. So I enjoyed the positioning and okay, what kind of units are you going to use? What kind of units are you going to pair them with? And how are you going to use them on this particular map with all these hills or this flat land or whatever, right? And I was like, I love this because it's not about I have the most powerful character in the world. It's about being presented with a combat situation with your team and then utilizing that team to, successfully complete the mission in, with this opposition or whatever, right? I love that. Same thing with and this isn't a strategy game, but this is a game that I remember it came out and I got a lot of flack. Metal Gear VR Missions. When that game came out, I remember my family got it and they hated it because it was oh, this isn't like Metal Gear. This is just bullshit missions. But I love that game because it was you're presented with these little scenarios and it's okay, now figure it out. And I love that. Same with the older Yu-Gi-Oh games, and Wolf can attest to this because he was also deep into it as well. We would play the older GBA and DS Yu-Gi-Oh games, specifically GBA, and like you would, one of the cooler features I don't think that they do anymore in current games, where they would, it was like a scenario mode where they would give you a hand, give you a state of play. You're in turn 20. You have 200 life points. The opponent has 8,000 life points still. This is the state of the board. Fucking win the match in one turn. And you have to sit there and like look at all the cards in the field, look at what's in your hand, look at what's in the graveyard, look at the fusion deck, and like figure out like, okay,
that's pretty cool.
how do I win this game right now? Because if I end turn, he's gonna kill me, right? And so that was the game. And so I loved that shit. And I remember Wolf sitting there for hours looking at this fucking screen like, how the fuck do you win? But the solution is possible, right? And so I remember him doing, I was like, that's interesting. And so when I got the game, I was doing that at home. I would sit there in my bed for fucking, like, it felt like hours. I'm pretty sure it probably was. And I'm just sitting here like, no, okay, I got it. And I would do the play, and I'm like, fuck, he has 2 life points left. Holy shit. I fucked it up. Where did I, and then I would reboot it and try again. And so I don't get that in games anymore. Games like platforming or 3D platform. I guess Metal Gear's a 3D platformer. Not really. It's more of an espionage action game, but whatever. The VR missions was like just this like gamer challenge. Like you understand the Metal Gear mechanics. You understand like these are the weapons you have. Okay, now figure out how to like sneak past these guards in this state of play to the other side. Like that was interesting too. I love that game. I gotta grab it again for PS1 because I don't have it. Same with like the Yu-Gi-Oh games and like that feature I just mentioned. Same with Fire Emblem and like just how those games were built. It was just like the scenarios and like, now use your brain and use your gamer brain to figure out how to win or whatever, which eventually makes you a better player because once you're faced with those scenarios, like if you face a similar scenario in a real matchup or in a real, in a normal gameplay or whatever, you're better prepared to handle that instead of just getting overwhelmed and getting, raped and losing or whatever. So I appreciated that.
That's the problem.
And so people shy away from that now. Go ahead, Wolf. I'm sorry. I kind of ranted down. My apologies, but
yeah, it's fine.
They don't want to be better. They just want to play.
Exactly.
But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing either, right? Like that's the thing. Like I think, like I mentioned before, some people don't. It's not necessarily that they lack the intellectual capability to become better, per se. It's just I play games because I just want to relax. So like I kind of sympathize with those people too, because I'm kind of like it depends on how I wake up. Some days I want to like really like grind and challenge. The other days I just kind of want to chill. Like I just want to play something familiar. Something I understand, something I don't have to like think about too much. Which is why I like platformers, because it's like I've done this before. I know how to play. Jump and shoot. Got it. Like I could just dive into those games, and I don't have to like bash my head against the wall trying to figure something out. Like just like some people, like you don't play Dark Souls games like that, Wolf, because they don't appeal to you, and they you feel like they're unfair. In most cases, which is I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I like the unfairness of those games because something about that is charming to me. Am I a masochist? Probably. I don't know. I don't have an official diagnosis, but there's my point is like there's like overlap here, but I also want to recognize that it's not a blanket. People are just stupider now. I think it's a little more nuanced than that. If
I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah. Okay. I trust me. I agree with the idea that the people are just dumber now, right? I think that's the case in a lot of ways, and I think there's evidence to prove to back that up. But I don't think that's just generally that's like it 100%. There is
right. It's not 100%.
Yeah, there is there's different variables, and there are different like reasons as to why people shy away from strategy. So
yeah,
moving on.
Yeah.
You gonna say something before I read this last part?
No, go ahead.
All right. Let's see. Where was I? I was gonna read this part. This has the implications for game design and marketing. Overall, gamers now prefer shorter time horizons to play. The number of steps and the branching outcomes they have to think through. and less complex decisions that rely on fewer parameters to consider. So people want less complicated games, more straight
They
to the
just want
point.
easier strategy games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for those of us who study gamers, typically in the more confined context of specific game titles and franchises, this finding may help explain observed changes among strategy-related player segments over the past decade that would otherwise have more likely attributed to game feature changes or COVID. What do you think? Why do you think gamers have become less interested in strategic thinking and planning? Are there other potential causes to mind? You kind of answered that question. Do you feel your attention span and ability to think deeply has changed since the emergence of social media and/or smartphones? Absolutely. Are there other documented changes in our media consumption habits or cognitive metrics that you think might be related to this? I don't know. I got to think about that one. I don't know if I have an answer to that right now.
I mean, my only anecdotal evidence is I treat YouTube as a form of television, and I hear a lot of different YouTube creators that make long form videos because that's what I gravitate
Yeah,
to.
me too.
If a guy has made like an hour long video, I'm like, hell yeah, we got like a movie or a television show for the next 3 weeks or 3 days at least. But I'll hear them talk about their YouTube woes, so to speak, and a lot of it is just it's attention spans. People cannot sit through even a 10-minute video, let alone a 60-minute video. So yeah, I think it's definitely I mean, we discussed it. Like social media has had a huge impact on people's, even in our generation, um, attention spans. And if something doesn't grab someone immediately, they're not going to stick around. And strategy games, unfortunately, they are a slow burn game. It's not like an action game where it'll grab you or it can grab you in the first 10 minutes of gameplay. The strategy game takes a couple hours of gameplay to kind of get you invested. And that is just not conducive to modern attention spans nowadays. Which is why you see, as the article stated, games that are strategy games, quote unquote, but you arrive at the conclusions faster. The maps are smaller, there's less enemies, you have more big giant AoE moves to take out multiple units in the same turn. If you build properly, you can have a singular unit solo the map. That's a thing that Fire Emblem has. I can build a character and he or she can solo the map. You see more games like that now.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that probably exists in older Fire Emblem games. If you look it up, like somebody broke the balance of the game. It's like, well, if you get this character and you get this item here, and you build the super character. I'm sure that exists. I'm sure, but like, I don't think it was intentional back then. Now it's absolutely intentional.
No, now it is the intention. Yeah.
Have you similar or related findings specific to gamers and games research? Not really. I just have my
I haven't conducted a study. It's all anecdotal. Yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing. Like, my takeaway question would be, how do you fix that? I don't think there is a fix.
I don't.
Right? Like,
I don't think
we've opened Pandora's box. There's no going back.
I think the fix is one of two things. Either you go the Nintendo route and you just kind of embrace that these are how strategy games are now, and it sounds kind of harsh, but like boomers like me either have to get with the program or just stick to the older games, or you release a more quote unquote traditional strategy game, and you know that a large portion of the gamer player base is not going to be interested because they're going to find it boring or too long or yada yada yada. Know that that's going to happen and cater to that smaller market that is interested in longer, harder, more less abusable strategy games, and just make your games in terms of like their quality, make them appropriate. Like, don't try to make a Final Fantasy VII Rebirth game in terms of looks and expect that I'm going to make a game that looks like that, but I'm going to make it a strategy game and it's going to make $3 billion. It's not. Make a maybe like a pixel style game or just a lower visual fidelity style game and go, okay, this is my budget. It's a lot smaller. Now I'm going to cater to the hardcore strategy RPG crowd, and you'll probably be more successful. So there's like two paths. Which way, strategy man? And that's how I see it.
With the Fire Emblem, they do a nice balance. Like, you can't set, what's the new one?
Engage.
Yeah, engage.
You can set engage to have classic settings.
You can, yeah.
So it's not like the game, the developers was like, okay, well, this is the new style, so we're gonna just abandon the old one. So they did it in a way where you have options. You can either play new style, you can play classic style, and kind of like pick the difficulty you want to go with, and be happy in that regard. But that's just one franchise out of the many that does require a thought process. And this is why we have to go with, I mean, even in like some games, right? Like in Monster Hunter. It was a little slower pace because you had to think things through a little bit more in, say, Freedom Unite versus Rise. And Rise is an attest to that. It's an anime game. You push buttons and amazing things happen. You know? The next Monster Hunter, we're going to be throwing Rasengans and Kamehameha waves.
I think that's I think that's disingenuous because I think Rise is still a Monster Hunter game at its core. You can't pick up and play Rise like you could pick up and play a Dragon Ball Z adventure game the same. There's still a Monster Hunter level of quality and complexity to Rise, even Monster Hunter Rise. So I don't agree with that statement.
It's me being sarcastic.
Okay.
But what I am saying is that it's not the Great Sword. It's not the Great Sword. The Great Sword in Unite is not the same Great Sword in Rise.
Yeah.
The same Great Sword as Rise is far more user friendly.
Yeah.
It's easier to pick up, easier to use.
Well, you could argue that for World as well.
Tiny. Yeah, true too. It is. And World is easier than Unite, but it's not as easy as Rise.
True.
So that's what I'm saying is like even in some games that's not strategy-based games, you see where the difficulty has changed because of
what it's been.
Right, because of the lack of wanting to use so a deeper.
And even in the Fire Emblem example, I mean, like you said, Wolf, you can choose between classic, aka if you guys die, they stay dead, to casual, where they'll come back in the next map. But the game is still fundamentally changed because a lot of these games have gotten rid of the usages.
Oh yeah. Like there is no more. Like your weapons don't run out anymore.
Yeah, like in Three Houses, the game before Fire Emblem Engage, they had these like super uber weapons that the main characters would get, and they would have AoE attacks, they would have close range attacks, and you could just use them.
Super moves.
Yeah, I chose not to use them. It's like, bro, I don't want to one-shot the map. That was just me making a choice to not use it, and someone would be like, bro, that's a resource. Use the resource. And it's like, yeah, I understand that, but I'm having Blythe solo the map, and I'm not even trying. This is not a strategy game. This is just like...
So...
This is Devil... It's a slower Devil May Cry.
I want to challenge that point. So, you say that, and I agree with you. I'm with you. But, I remember us talking about the weapon degradation system in Breath of the Wild, and how that was annoying to you. Right? I like it, because it created this, like... I always have to adapt to the situation mentality, and I never got attached to any one weapon because I can lose these weapons at any moment. So for me, it was always like a survival mindset that I had to have, and an adaptability mindset that I had to have, and I enjoyed that gameplay. A lot of people, and I think Gunner included, and I think Wolf too, you disliked it because it lacked consistency, right? And you I don't know. You tell me. I know you guys dislike that system, but how is that different than the use system in older Fire Emblem games, like the weapon usage? Like how is that different? And how is one better than the
So,
other?
so to me, the reason why that's different is that Fire Emblem, these weapons were always resources. The Levin sword or Killer Edge was always a resource because it had a number attached to it. It was like the magic system in older Final Fantasy games where I only had 5 cures. That's a resource. The difference between Legend of Zelda is because there is canonical lore. The Master Sword is more than just a resource. It's a sword with history. It's a sword that has legends and lore attached to it. So it it evolves or it elevates itself from a simple sword to this is the sword that fights evil. So for the
Mhm.
sword to fight that fights evil to now have a cooldown and it loses its batteries and I have to recharge it, to
Mhm.
me it's disrespectful because that sword is so much more than just a tool to kill things. While in Fire Emblem, the Killer Edge from day one was a sword that had 50% increased critical hit rate from the
For
jump.
a
There's no
reason,
for a
right?
reason. Yeah, there's no lore behind the Killer Edge. It's just this sword is really good at crits. Whereas the Master Sword has all this to it for it to now become a finite item, in my opinion, is disrespectful to the lore of the Master Sword. So for me, that's the difference.
So if you take the Master Sword out of that equation and you just look at the weapon degradation system, just minus the Master Sword, right? Because the Master Sword doesn't actually break. It just, like you said, it puts itself in cooldown, which is different, right? It's technically better than every other weapon in the game because it never breaks. You just have to give it time. But if we just look at the base weapons and how they degrade, and then we look at Fire Emblem, and we look at how weapons have a use counter, right? You can only use a spell 20 times after in the entire game. Once you use the spell 20 times, this particular item goes away, and you have to get another spell, right, or whatever. How is that
Yeah.
different?
It teaches you the okay.
Because
So
both is just item management, right? It's just resource
right,
management,
it's item management.
right?
So with the Zelda one, the way I looked at it was the Zelda one. It in the Legend of Zelda, the franchise, you don't really have a lot of weapons per se.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, the weapon you get is typically for that specific dungeon, and then from there, the game is designed to say you'll use it here and there throughout the whole game. Your main weapons typically that you use as DPS is um, the sword, the shield, your arrows, and depending on the game you're playing, magic.
Mm.
Um, and again, it could be the timing of it, but the training of it, the train of thought of it. So, like, say with the Legend of Zelda, what annoyed me with the weapon usage, breaking, and all that stuff is because for me, it wasn't the Legend of Zelda isn't about managing my weapon resources. That's not what it was. It was about the exploration of the game, the
Yes.
story, the characters. So you now introduce that to me, and it honestly becomes less more about why I originally liked The Legend of Zelda to more about, okay, now I have to manage my resources. So I don't really get to explore things the way that I want to or enjoy Zelda the way that I grew to enjoy Zelda initially. Whereas in Fire Emblem, that is how the game was introduced to us. It was introduced to
Exactly.
us as like, okay, your units are limited, your weapons are limited, your items are limited. You even get limited EXP. So you to manage from the get-go. Like this is how it was designed from the ground up. So it could be a mental thing where, or a comfort thing where one was like, okay, well, your weapon slots were small, but it's more about the exploration and the story and the fairy tale that is Zelda versus Fire Emblem being more about, okay, this is your thought process, right? Like, I feel like there's more strategy in Fire Emblem than there is in any Zelda game, period. But even though Zelda is my favorite franchise of any game I've played, but the strategy behind Fire Emblem is that it was built like this. From the time you load the game, it is management. That's what the franchise made its history on. That's what this is how it's played. This is how you make your characters strong and so forth. So when Nintendo flipped it, where in Fire Emblem nothing is like in the new Fire Emblems, depending if you played casual mode, you're not limited on anything. You don't really have to think it through. You can go through the same map over and over again. The characters gain their EXP over and over again.
Right, they added farming to Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem never had farming.
It never had farming. So you can now develop your characters, and not just like the 5 out of the 12 or 15 that they would give you through the game. Before it was like that, where it's like, okay, whew, my swords master, he made it through this fight. He gained EXP. Okay, I'm using him in the next map. And and then from there it's like, okay, sword fighter is this strong. I need to build a mage because magic is useful. The sword fighter can protect the mage. Let me think through how this works so that my mage can actually gain EXP with the support of my sword fighter, for example. Now it's like, okay, well, my mage died. Swordmaster gained the EXP for the level, but you know what? I'll just go back out, go back in, do the map again, and play a different route, and my mage will gain EXP.
Yeah.
So you in one sitting, not multiple playthroughs, which is replayability really, but in one sitting you can take your mage into being what are those versions of the mage? Or is the mage the high version? Mage is the highest version of magic users.
Yeah, or you could take it to like either the one that rides a Pegasus or the one that rides a dragon.
Right. You can go through all of those in one sitting, and then because you have unlimited resources, you can develop one character you can develop one character to be as strong as they possibly could be. And then you can say, okay, well, I'm going to take this character and do it. Okay, I'm going to take this character and do it. And then by the time you're ready to beat the game, all 20 characters is at max level with the best skills, with the best weapons, and it's like, well, the final boss isn't really much of a final boss now.
Yeah, and you end up steamrolling them because you could make everyone powerful, as opposed to the older games where you had to manage. Okay, I don't want Mark to get too strong. I don't want to get Roy too strong. I just got to I got to get this heavy knight. I got to get him some EXP. I got to get the mage some EXP, and so on and so on. And I only have 25 maps to do that because that's how long this game is.
But you can replay those. Like, you can't replay those maps.
No,
so
you couldn't.
You have to thoroughly sit down and manage every single resources. And Kong, you know me. I'm a person who likes to manage resources. Like, even when we played Yugi back in the days, any build that I made was always about the resources. Was always about, can I recycle this? Can I reuse this? How much of this can I go back to? So for me, resources is an important thing. So when Zelda switched it to where everything now is resource, where it's like, okay, well, we have limited weapons or limited items, blah, blah, blah. You can cook. It turned me off because I don't remember much about the story of Breath of the Wild. I remember more of, okay, well, I had to go through a whole dark forest to get my Master Sword, where I couldn't see anything, or in these lion horse monsters and collecting the strong weapons and using the wind and the fire. Like, that's nice. It's not that it's not nice, but the reason why Ocarina of Time lives in my head rent free, the reason why Twilight Princess lives in my head rent free, is because there was this immersion of the fairy tale that is Legend of Zelda.
Yeah.
You know, like seeing Link force a Master Sword through Ganondorf's chest, and this man gets up to continue to fight. That has nothing to do with resources. It has nothing to do with how many weapons you can use or your Master Sword depowered. But it has everything to do with how determined the holder of the Triforce of Courage is compared and versus the holder of the Triforce of Power. It's just like these two was like when I saw that scene in Twilight Princess when Ganondorf moved forward while the sword was in his chest, like he's ready to like this man is still fighting. It's like it was like, yo, like these are two characters that's destined to fight each other every single generation. That is the beauty of Zelda right there. It's just like this is an amazing story.
So I have a question.
Amazing fairy tale.
So when it comes to Fire Emblem, and be honest, modern Fire Emblem, do you guys play on classic mode or casual mode?
I play both.
You play both. And Gunnar, you play both as well, or do you stick to classic?
I play both, yeah.
So why is it that you play both?
So I play casual the first playthrough. It's my mindset. I play casual the first playthrough because I want to understand the characters. It gives me the time to do that. I want to understand what the game is about, things that I can do, things that I cannot do. It lets me enjoy the story more. But then I turn back and I go hardcore or classic because now I know what to expect. I know what kind of characters I have, so I know what to invest into.
Okay, it's the same reason. I start on casual before, so when it's a brand new game, I'll start on casual. Once I get a feeling for the game and how resources work and how the flow of battle works, and I can start to see who is worth investing in and who's not worth investing in. And once I get my final party solidified or vaguely solidified, I'll switch it to classic mode. It's like, okay, now in my head, if I lose you, I lose you. And I'm going to have to bring someone who's inferior, but that was my fault because I wasn't a smart player. So once I get a hang of the game, I'll switch it to classic and I'll run the rest of the game.
Interesting. So the reason why I bring all that up is because I was really just trying to pick you guys' brains to see like where you land on certain things, because the way I see it, the reason why I love Breath of the Wild so much is the same reason why I like old Fire Emblem, is the same reason why I like older Resident Evil games. It's all about resource management. I think if a game has limitations, like conscious, very purposeful limitations, it can make a game from okay to like fucking amazing, because those limitations create scenarios that you can put yourself into and really challenge your either your execution or your reflexes or just your mind, right? And I enjoy that, which is why I like Dark Souls and games like that really challenge you. But I dislike games from like, you know, the Sega Genesis era, Nintendo era, that are just blatantly cheap. Like it's just like impossible to play this game. Like that's not fun, right?
Okay, I get what you're saying.
So
yeah.
The reason why I compared Breath of the Wild to like modern Fire Emblem, I think for me, the way I see it, modern Zelda combat, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, is more strategic than old school Zelda combat, where it's a little more, you know, it's just like you're just whacking your sword, you're blocking, you're whacking, right?
Absolutely.
Right? So that's why I like newer Zelda games, right? Where it's the reverse for Fire Emblem, where old Fire Emblem is like more strategic. You gotta really think about what you're doing. You gotta be ready to sacrifice things. There's permadeath. You gotta put more thought into every move, right? Whereas new Fire Emblem, hey, do whatever you want, man. Like, it's a free world, man. Just love who you love. Like, you just do whatever, right? And so it's just funny that like one's modern, one's classic, but they're on opposite sides of the spectrum as far as like where they are in time. And you guys both play both games, but somehow, like for Zelda, you guys share the opinion of like, well, I play Zelda for like the adventure and the story. I can't enjoy the story because I'm worried about like how many sticks I got and shit, and I gotta like, I gotta make sure I gotta put brain power to like this mechanic that I'm not fond of or whatever. I'm more interested in the story. Whereas with Fire Emblem, it's interesting. Like modern Fire Emblem, you guys play it in this way where I want to play it like I play old Zelda games. I just want to enjoy it, man. I just want to vibe, man. And then it's like, okay, now I understand everything. Now I have knowledge of how this game works, what the characters are, what the weapons are. I did my research. I know exactly what crit path I want to go into. Now I can play the game at its like highest difficulty. Where me, if I were to play the newer Fire Emblem games, I would play classic right away blind. Like that's how I would do it because that's the experience that I'm looking for. I want to not know what's beyond the fog and be able to react to it authentically and see how I stack up against it. So for me, it's like that's where we're different, and so that's it. That's why I brought that up, and I wanted to like, pick your brains a bit to see like how that all stacks up, and it's an interesting outcome for me at least. I thought it was interesting to hear you guys talk about that stuff and to see the differences and compare it to like how I play games and how I look at it and what I enjoy.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. For me, Zelda, there's a lot more emotion attached to Zelda.
mm,
Where when Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom became more gamified in its resource management, it lost me a bit because it's just like Zelda was the one game where I didn't want to treat it like a video game. Like I'm obviously playing a video game, but for me it's about being immersed in this iteration of Hyrule.
right.
That's why I like every Zelda game. It's Hyrule, yeah, but it's a different type of Hyrule. Ocarina is different from Twilight Princess. That's different from Wind Waker. That's different from Link to the Past. Whereas Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom being in the same world, it felt weird to me. It really felt weird. And
Okay. I do have a
like,
follow up question.
yeah,
But go ahead.
yeah, for me, it's about the adventure. It's about starting off as your little elf boy, and all he has is his little sword and his little shield, and slowly gathering items like your hook shot and your bow and your mirror shield to end game Link, where he's like this rugged adventurer. He's seen some shit. He's fought some shit. And he has all the tools at his disposal that's carried him through all these dungeons. And now he's ready to confront Ganondorf with all of the knowledge and skill that both he in the game and you as the player have gained. And when I have to worry about, fuck, I'm low on food. Let's do another boar run so I can make well done steaks. To me it becomes a video game again, and it's like, damn it, I don't want to treat Zelda as as a video game. As weird as it sounds,
No,
it's very
it doesn't
personal.
sound weird.
Yeah.
I get it, and I don't agree because I don't play games that way. I don't, but like I understand it. So my follow up question is, with all that being said, do you think that the way Fire Emblem does it now is the way to do it? Do you have like a little more sympathy for people who like would only play that game in casual mode based on like what we just talked about?
Okay, so for me, yeah, I can understand it now. I can understand the guy who wants to play, and I'm usually a big fan of gatekeeping. Like, I don't a little tangent. I don't want Elden Ring to ever be made easy. I know we had that whole discussion about, or the internet had the whole discussion of adding an easy or a difficulty options to Elden Ring. No, Elden Ring is Elden Ring. You can't hack it. Go fucking play something else. Sorry. But as far as the strategy games, like, I get it. These are lengthy games. They are by their nature lengthy games. And as long as they do what Nintendo has done and give me the option, I would love if they gave me a Fire Emblem that was 100% classic, brought back all of the usages, took out all of the skills. I don't want Soul, I don't want Luna. Take all of that out and just make it, I'm boy with sword. These are what I'm good at. This is what I'm bad against. If they've added those two styles of games, then yes, I wouldn't mind if someone who wanted to only play the engage style of game, let them play it. It's fine. Have fun. This is the same reason as why I think Rise should exist, and games like Rise should exist, and also games like World should exist. Is that going to divide the player base? Yeah, it is. But if we can both live in stay in our own lane, basically, let the Rise players have their fast-paced game where you counter Magdamalo and deal 1,000,000 damage, and I'll be with the World guys where it's slow-paced, and the most hype shit we do is knock a dragon against a wall. I'm down for that.
Okay. What about you, Wolf?
I guess so. In the same breath, like I said, they in Fire Emblem's specific case, I still have Fire Emblem because of what the smart thing that the developers did. Not like this is a bit of a disconnect, but hopefully people understand what I'm saying. You see, like how in fighting games we now have auto combos, and it's a part of the game, and I have to deal with it.
Yeah.
In Fire Emblem case, it's a menu option that I can choose. So even if me and Bob plays the same thing, Bob can play on classic, Bob can play on casual, I can play on classic, but overall the experiences will be different, but the game is still the same. So we can talk about the game. We can have that conversation, right? But that's one thing I can give it. Now, I think I would be more vain to the topic if it was only casual.
Yeah.
If I when it go back to classic, I would be more vain to it. And that's the thing that is why, Zelda changed because I guess to modernize it, they removed dungeons, right? Which to me was a part of the exploration. It wasn't so much the combat system. It was the exploration, seeing those immersive dungeons, being able to navigate through them, solving puzzles. That was the thinking process. But now it's not like that anymore. Am I okay with the resource management? Of course I'm going okay with it. But even like when I pull up YouTube videos, like say if I pull up a YouTube video of Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, especially Tears of the Kingdom, the creativity behind it is all nice. Like people are creating freaking Gundams with the things that you can do in the game. But I'm gonna lose myself doing that instead of getting involved in, again, story-driven game like Zelda, whereas Fire Emblem is a strategy-driven game. So it's two different point of views, which ironically swapped in how you manage your characters or your avatars.
Yeah. I just thought that was an interesting parallel there that I wanted to explore for a little bit because I don't think we ever had that conversation before. So it was nice that this article kind of spawned that topic.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, for those listening, I hope you enjoyed the conversation. You gleaned some type of entertainment at the very least from it. I know we kind of veered a little bit off topic and we started comparing Zelda to Fire Emblem, which is like such a random comparison, but hey, we did it. But yeah, it is rooted in this article, in the strategic gameplay, and so I just wanted to explore how these guys thought about that and how it differentiates depending on the game. And the point of that was really to just kind of highlight how, I don't want to use the word fickle, but people are fickle. We do change on the drop of a dime depending on how we feel and depending on how we see things and what we respond to and what we like and dislike. And so that was the point of that conversation, was to kind of highlight it even amongst us, and we're different and we have different interests and stuff, but we can still sit here and agree to disagree, or at the very least allow each other to kind of okay, well, if that's what you like to do, then I'll respect it and I'll allow you. I won't get in the way of you enjoying your game. I'm not going to call you you're a lesser gamer because you play casual. We're past that, trust me.
Yeah.
That is some not even middle school shit. That's some like elementary school shit. But yeah, it was very interesting. So I hope you guys gleaned something of use from that. Like the video if you liked it, dislike if you didn't. Comment down below. Do you play strategy games? Do you enjoy strategy games? Do you stay away from them? Why is that, right? Why do you think there's a dip in interest in those kinds of games? I like to hear from you guys. Check out the description for the article. Link to the article will be posted there, as well as our social media. We have a presence on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Discord, TikTok. Mr. Esoteric, who wasn't present for this conversation, runs a Twitch channel. He streams 2 to 3 times a week, plays all sorts of different games. So definitely check out his channel, give him a follow, and hopefully you catch one of his live shows. Pretty interesting, pretty chill streamer style. I think you'd enjoy it. And if you don't, then let him know. Hey, spice it up, Esoteric. Let him know in the comments. I don't know. And yeah, we produce podcast episodes like this every single week. We talked about it in an article. People have less attention spans, but hey, we like to produce some long form content. It's an hour, 10 minutes here. We do this once a week, so if you like this kind of content, you can leave it in the background and just listen to it as you're doing your laundry or going to the gym or whatever. That's what I do with long form content. You can do that. We do it once a week. We're at episode like 160 or something like that now. So there's a lot of content to choose from, a lot of different topics to choose from. So definitely check out our legacy videos for more topics. With that being said, we'll see you in the next week's episode. Have a good night. Take care.
Take it easy.